lot longer we can shine so much stronger. We can do more than it seems. We can exceed our dreams. We can sing along. We can. We can. We can. We can. We can. We can.
Good morning, everyone. Well, it's great to see all of you here this morning. Thank you for coming and being a part of our connection and fellowship together and our celebration of life and joy and possibilities in life. I had, yesterday was my birthday. Thank you. Thank you. I've gotten all kinds of wonderful well wishes for my birthday, and I want to thank you for that. And I celebrated my 30th birthday for the second time, plus one. Yeah, you can always celebrate your birthday twice, you know, the same one. And we actually watched a wonderful spiritual cinema last night called Cliffy, and Cliffy was an amazing story. If you haven't seen this movie, I really encourage it. And someone who was just my age ran a 500-mile ultramarathon. I won't be doing that today. However, I do have some wonderful things to share about life and what it means to age and I came across these 20 signs that you're getting older. One, you're asleep, but others worry that you're dead. Your back goes out more often than you do. You quit trying to hold your stomach in no matter who walks in the room. That's mostly for us guys, I think. And so you buy a compass to put on your dashboard of your car. You're very proud of your lawnmower. Your arms are almost too short to read the newspaper. You sing along. Oh, this is one of my favorites. You go into the elevator so you can hear some of your favorite songs. Let's see. You'd rather go to work than stay home sick. You enjoy hearing about other people's operations. You no longer think of speed limits as a challenge. And people call at 9 p.m. and ask, "I'm sorry, did I wake you?" And you answer a question with, "Because I said so." The end of your tie doesn't come anywhere near the top of your pants. And you take a metal detector to the beach with you. That's a pretty good sign, yeah. Let's see, here's another one. You can't remember what the last name you, you can't remember the last time you laid on the floor to watch television. And your ears are hairier than your head. And let's see, there's one more here I wanted to read. You got cable channel just so you can make sure and catch the Weather Channel. I'm happy to say that none of these are true for me. But it was fun looking at that, and I feel pretty blessed. I feel pretty blessed and feel good, and I'm really tickled to be here and to share some thoughts and ideas with you this morning. I wanted to share with you and talk a little bit about a wonderful book that was written by a Unity minister friend of mine, Wendy Craig Purcell. And Wendy, I think, is just a wonderful, delightful teacher and just a very wonderful, deep spiritual thinker and teacher. Has a wonderful congregation out in California. And some of you who watched our series on Deepak Chopra and the Third Jesus, she was the one who was interviewing Deepak in the series, and she's just a great teacher and presenter. The name of the book is Ask Yourself This. Ask Yourself This. And one of the most significant things that you and I can do to grow ourselves spiritually, and that's kind of what our lesson is about this week, is the lesson is ask yourself this to grow spiritually. And the idea is, the understanding is that it is oftentimes more significant, the questions that we ask, than it is the answers that we receive. And we will oftentimes learn and grow and experience life more significantly based upon the types and the style and the questions that we tend to ask and how we tend to ask those questions. And it's, I think in many ways, as significant, and maybe even more so, to determine the questions to ask in life than it is to try and figure out all the answers. We grow more oftentimes by asking questions than we do by figuring things out. And we've been called during this time, I think, to really ask a lot of important questions and really not only look at the questions that we're asking, but looking at what we're being called to ask. There's so many things going on in this world and this life that are really calling us, I think, to come up into a higher awareness, a higher understanding. And we're asked to rethink a lot of things these days. We're asked to look at things differently. Different aspects of our lives, both individually and collectively, both in our careers, our relationships, our politics. We're asked to look at things differently from the world perspective. The things that are happening are really in many ways forcing us in some ways to really look at and ask different questions, bigger questions, and to look for and be open to bigger answers. But we can't get those bigger answers unless we begin to really ask the bigger questions. And so Wendy presents to us some wonderful questions, and my intention is not necessarily to come here and try and answer those questions for you. My intention is to ask you to simply really take some time to reflect on and answer these, let these questions be answered from within you. And use this as a time and an opportunity to re-look at some of the questions that maybe you've asked yourself before, and look at some of the answers that you've come up with, and ask yourself, is that the only answer? Or is there another answer, or a larger answer that I can be open to, even asking some of these questions? So some of these questions may not be new to you. I suspect most of you wouldn't be here if you hadn't already started asking some of these questions at some point in your life. And I will share certainly some of my thoughts and feelings and insights and awarenesses, but by doing that, I want you to really hear that I'm not asking you to accept what my answers are. I'm asking you to listen for that spirit within you to what your answers are, because you have within you the spirit of the divine, and I truly do have faith that there is something within you that is there to try and help you to move into the answers that are highest and best for you in life. I'm doing pretty well to try and listen to a lot of the answers that are working for me, and sometimes I have to really ask the questions again a lot of times myself and look, is this really the best answer for me? Is this the answer that I need to really be hearing, or is it an answer that I'm just quickly jumped into, or an assumption that I've made? So some of the questions, one of the things that Wendy says that I really like, she says, questions are like channels through which our mental, creative, emotional, and spiritual energy flows. If we want to get a better answer, we have to ask a better question. Sometimes it has to be a different question, and sometimes it has to be a really big question. And so for the next 7 weeks, we're going to start working with asking some of these questions and exploring them as a way of our spiritual practice to move us into other possibilities of our own spiritual nature. You know, one of the things, beautiful things that I have to say that I love about Unity, and I've always loved about Unity, is the openness, and not only the openness, but the actually encouragement to ask the questions, to feel, you know, when people come into Unity, there seems to be a feeling oftentimes of just feeling at home, that there's some kind of a sense. How many of you, when you first came into a Unity church, had this sense that you felt right at home? It's a very common experience. And I think there's a real blessing in that. And one of the things about that is that we all are looking for something, and you're encouraged to not just to simply just accept what's being said or taught, but really to ask the questions for yourself and to move into a place where you can explore your own unique nature and your own experience of God and life. And so we're all hungry for that, and there's something that's calling us in that way. Sometimes, however, we tend to get answers and we become very comfortable with those answers. And those become very rote for us. And so it's valuable for us to really continue to ask the question and listen. So one of the questions that Wendy's throws out here that I think is really valuable for us to look at is a simple question, and that is, how big is your God? And just ask yourself now that question, how big is my God? Now that might seem like a really simple kind of question, but oftentimes we are coming from a place of telling life and the world, let me say it this way, telling God, the divine, you might say, telling God how big our problems are. Right? We're praying from a place of, dear God, I got all these problems, and they're so much bigger than me. And oftentimes in doing that, we're also saying they're so much bigger than you. Rather than the other way around of telling our problems how big our God is. Now, what that says to me really is, it's a simple way of saying, how much faith am I putting in the problems in my life, and how much faith am I putting in what we know ultimately is the answer to those problems, which is some aspect of the divine working in and through even those problem situations and circumstances. So one of the things you might value during this time is to really just ask yourself, when you're dealing with a challenge or circumstance in life, ask yourself the question, how big am I making this problem, and how little am I making the possibilities of a solution through something greater in life? It's a simple question, but it can be very profound, and I think it's important. I think it's important primarily because it's important to continue to explore and be open and expand our awareness of what the divine is, of what God is. We do have a tendency, even I think in what I call the New Thought world, to still conceptualize God, the divine, and we get very comfortable with what we know and think and believe about what that is and what's possible. And when we do that, we are putting God in a box, aren't we? We're putting the divine in a conception of our belief system about God. And our belief systems are always in boxes. They're limited. And so when we get comfortable with our own thoughts and feelings about, what we know, then we're automatically shutting off the possibilities of greater answers that are there for us. They're there for us, but we're not hearing them because we're not looking beyond the limits of our own concepts, of our own belief systems. And so part of our exploration in this is to really ask that question, how big is the box what's the box that I put my God in? And am I willing to let go of the boundaries that I've placed upon the possibilities of blessing, the possibilities of good, the possibilities of experiencing a greater expression of life, of love, of health, of healing, of abundance, of prosperity. So how big is our God? That's a good question to ask ourselves. Another good question that she throws out here that really speaks to me. These are questions that really can expand our not only our concepts, but our worldview. When you ask the question, how big is your God, it really does call into an understanding that your perception and your conception of God is going to determine how you're going to experience the world. Do you realize that? If you have a conception or an idea of a vengeful, wrathful, petty God, you're going to experience the world as being vengeful and wrathful and petty. It's true, isn't it? But if you have an understanding that there is a benevolent power and force in the universe that is continually working in your good, you're going to experience life as a way of allowing that benevolent power and force, that creative energy and power to work through you, and it's going to bring into your experience even greater possibilities of blessing in your life. So how you view the divine is going to really determine and have a great influence on how you experience life in general. So ask yourself the question, how am I looking at my experience and my awareness of God? Here's another great question to ask yourself. When you come across a circumstance, I like this question. How wide is my circle? How wide is my circle? How wide is your circle? Another way of asking that is, how open am I? How open am I? I like how she puts this, and this is one of my favorite poems, actually. It's a poem that she quotes from Edwin Markham, and it's called Outwitted. He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. To me, that's one of the most beautiful expressions of the possibilities of and the limits of love. We can certainly love. How did the phrase go in the song? Love stronger, love longer. Yeah. We all have the ability to love more than what we are really allowing ourselves. And I think one of the things that really, asking that question, how big is my circle, helps us to move past some of the limits that we even place on our ability to experience and to express love. Abraham Lincoln once said, "I don't like that man. I must get to know him better." It's a very powerful shift in understanding. I'm excited, and I really do celebrate. One of my heroes is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and we're going to be celebrating his birthday tomorrow, and I'm glad that my birthday is very close to his. I feel very good about that, and I just think that this is someone who really understood this concept and this question and was able to really ask this question in a deep way. How large is my circle? One of the things he said was, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Another great quote that I appreciate from Dr. King is, everybody can be great because somebody can serve, because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject, a verb, agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. And another great quote from him: faith is taking the first step even when you can't see the whole staircase. Can't see the whole staircase. So when you think about what's going on in your life, when you find yourself in a situation with people in life, you ever had experiences with people? You know what I'm talking about when I mean experiences, right? Opportunities to learn, opportunities to grow. These are called experiences with people, right? When we have experiences with people in life, it's valuable to ask yourself the question, how large is my circle? How large am I willing to make it? How large am I willing to expand my ability to bring people in to my circle? She tells a great little story about there was a Catholic priest and a chaplain that served together in the military and became really good friends. And they were in different units, but they just got really close at one point. And he heard that the priest heard that the chaplain had been killed in battle. And he was such a good friend. He wanted to make sure that he was taken care of and he was buried properly and there was respect shown to him, and found that he really didn't have any family. So he asked to be able to bury him in the plot next to the church, that the Catholic church that he served. And they said, well, sure, fine. He has no family, so you can certainly do that. But then when he came to the church council said, well, he's not a Catholic, so we can't really bury him in the church plot. And so he was not happy about that, and kind of really, bothered him. But he said, well, okay, then what I will do is I will bury him just outside of the church cemetery. And so he did. And then another friend who knew him came to visit and wanted to said he wanted to go and see the grave where the chaplain had been buried. And so they went and looked, and the grave was there inside the cemetery. And he said, well, I'm just thrilled that you were able to get him brought into the cemetery. What happened? He says, well, they told me where I couldn't put the grave, but they didn't tell me where I could put the fence. He drew a larger circle. You and I are consistently invited and encouraged and called upon in this time, in this life, in this age especially, to draw a larger circle. And yes, that does mean those that don't hold the same political views as us. And as challenging as that may be at times. Those who don't hold the same religious views as us at times. It's so important for us to not push away, because there really is only one presence and one power in the universe, and you and I are a part of that, and so are those that we want to sometimes separate from that. How big is my circle? Great question to ask. Another great question I like that she just really speaks to my heart and soul, and this one, if I would do this a little more often, I can tell my life would be a lot better, and I think it would be true for all of us. The question she poses is this, and this has to do with decisions. Any of you have a decision to make? Small decision, large decision. We all have decisions to make in life. Some of them seem large, some of them seem small. We all have decisions to make, right? So one of the things she encourages is faith or fear guiding my decision? Is faith or fear guiding my decision? While fear certainly encourages action, it does not encourage conscious action. Fear promotes impulsive decisions. Great question to ask. Is faith or fear guiding my decision? Think about the decision that you have before you in life. It may be a very simple decision. It may be a life decision. But if you take some time to sit and listen within yourself where you're making the decision from, are you making it from a place of fear? Fear of what might happen, or fear of what might not happen, right? Then you're generally not coming from an awareness of the greater possibilities of wisdom that can come through you. But if you're coming from a place of love, you can pretty much bet that it may not always be the easiest decision to make. Sometimes the decisions that we make in love can be the most challenging for us. Can it? But I can assure you that when we come from that place of love and making our decisions, there's something higher that will work through us to bring about a greater experience of good and the possibilities of love in our lives and in the lives of those around us. So ask yourself that question. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "He has not learned the first lesson of life who does not every day surmount a fear." I always like to think of this also in terms of, am I asking the question, am I making a decision from love or faith? Faith is actually, in my opinion, faith and fear are really two sides of the same coin in many ways. When we are fearful of something, what we're doing is putting our faith in what we fear, instead of putting our faith in what we truly want to see and experience in life. So part of that shift is really asking that question. Another way that she puts it is asking the question, what am I listening for and what am I listening to? What am I listening for and what am I listening to? Think about this as you go through your life and go through your week and go through your experiences. She gives a great story of a Native American and a friend of his from New York, and they were walking down the city streets of New York. It's a great little story she gives. And as they're walking along, there's the hustle and bustle of the city going on, and the Native American friend says, "Wait a minute, I hear something." And the guy kind of looks at him and says, "Well, of course you hear something. This is New York City. How you're not going to hear something, right?" And so he says, no, I hear something. I hear a cricket. And he says, "How can you possibly hear a cricket with all the sirens and the horns and just all of the sounds that are going on?" And the guy walks over to a plant box on one of the windows and looks inside and lifts up a leaf, and sure enough, there was a cricket. And he said, "How? You must have ultra sensitive ears." And he says, No, I don't. My ears are just like anybody else's ears. It all depends on what you choose to listen to and what you choose to listen for. He was listening for the sounds of nature. And when you focus your attention on listening for let me put it this way, what you focus your attention on to listen for is what you will tend to tune into, and that's what you'll draw into your awareness. Now, all the other sounds are still there, but it's so important for you and I to listen for what? What are you wanting to listen for? What are you wanting to draw into your awareness? What are you wanting to draw into your experience? Are you listening for the problems? Are you listening for the I can'ts? Are you listening for the ways, the limits? Are you listening for the thou shalt nots? Or are you listening for the yeses, the possibilities? Are you listening for the how you cans instead of the how you can'ts? Does that make sense? So ask the question, what am I listening for? What am I really looking and listening for? And also, what am I listening to, of course, Am I listening to those who are holding the voices and the energy of limitation? or am I listening to those who are really encouraging the possibilities of a greater good? Ram Dass says the next message that you need is always right where you are. It's not going to be somewhere else because that's not where you are. The next message you need is always right where you are. And then I'm actually going to close with this question because I think it's to me, one of the big questions we need to ask ourselves in life. It's a question that can really move us into a greater experience of blessings that are beyond where we may find ourselves at this time. This question, what is God preparing me for? We have a tendency to ask a lot of times, what is God preparing for me? Don't we? I mean, let's be honest. That's one of the questions we ask ourselves a lot. What has God got for me today? But a really very powerful and beautiful question is, what is it that God is preparing me for? What are some things, what are the events and circumstances and experiences that are coming into my awareness? What are they there to help me to become? What are the possibilities of a greater expression of life and of wisdom, of love? What are the possibilities that life and circumstances and the divine and the law of attraction, all of those things are working on us in some way to move us into a greater possibility of who and what we are being called to be. We are being called higher consistently. Henry David Thoreau said this, I learned this at least by my experiment, that if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he had imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. Yeah, this is one of my favorite quotes from Henry David Thoreau.
Amen.
If one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he had imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. What are you being called for? What are you being called to? Think about and listen to the dreams that are coming to you and the possibilities of a greater good that you can imagine, and I can assure you the universe has something even better for you. And as we begin to move into and ask those questions, what is it that the universe is preparing me for? It moves us into the possibilities of, as Gandhi says, being the change that we wish to see in the world. And so as you look at the different circumstances and situations that are going on in your life, be open to the possibility that asking the questions will open you to even greater possibilities of something that you perhaps had not even imagined for yourself. And I want to close this morning with this. This is one of my favorite quotes also from Rainer Maria Rilke. Rainer Maria Rilke was 1903. He said, I would like to beg you, dear sir, as well as I can, to have patience with everything unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers, which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday, far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Live the questions for now. So for this week, to grow spiritually, ask yourself some of these questions. How big is my God? How large is my circle? Am I making a decision from fear or from faith? Am I forgot the next one. What's the next question? What am I listening for and what am I listening to? Yes, yeah. I invite you this week to spend some time reflecting on, meditating on, and listening to the questions that can expand the heart and the mind and the soul in a greater knowing of who and what you are and what you've come here to do and be. What is God preparing me for? So have a fun time with these questions this week, and we'll have more questions next week to explore asking questions to know myself better. Asking questions to know myself better. Come join us, and let's move into our meditation time. I invite you to move into a comfortable place as we move into our meditation time. As we close our eyes and breathe the breath of life in and out. Allow that breath to flow gently through you into the heart space. And as we close our physical eyes, we open our inner eyes of our heart and focus our attention and awareness in the heart space. And it's in and through our hearts that we are able to feel and know and experience more of the possibilities of our unique divine nature, of the Spirit of God within us. The Christ within. And to listen to that still small voice of Spirit. A voice that is not necessarily of words, but of a knowing and an assurance and a possibility and a peace. And let your heart be open to asking the larger questions. Perhaps you've asked them before and gotten awarenesses, insights, answers. But let yourself be open to asking again, perhaps even deeper, and being open for even greater possibilities of answers. Just sit with the questions. How large and how big is my God? How large is my circle? How open am I? What am I listening for? Perhaps awarenesses come into mind of circumstances and situations where these questions are very relevant for you. Am I making a decision on faith or on fear? On love or on fear? And am I willing to make a different decision from a different place? What is it that God is preparing me for? What is it that God is preparing me to do? How is it that God is preparing me to be? What qualities are being called forth from within me by the situations and circumstances in life. And what is the change that is being called from within me? And am I willing to take those steps? Am I willing to take the steps? Take a nice deep breath now. Let your awareness come back into this room, this time and place. Take another nice deep breath and live in the questions and allow the universe to help you to live in the answers that are yours. Take another nice deep breath, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Be present here and now. And so it is.